Okay, the setup for the bench press. So when you lie down on the bench, you want to be in a position so the bar is above your collarbone, your neck area. You don't want to be too far back, so see how I'm way too deep, there I'm way too far forward. We just want to be under the bar so it's anywhere between like around our collarbone and neck. Our grip width, we're going to start just slightly outside shoulder width, and we may have to adjust this later on, but for now we're going to start there. Here you're going to see me go too wide, and I'm going to bring it in too narrow. So we're going to start slightly outside of shoulder width. Okay, so as far as the actual grip on the bar, we want to make sure that we're wrapping our thumbs around the bar. And the bar is going to be resting deep in the palm of our hands. We don't want the bar to be resting near our fingers. And some people use a thumbless grip. I don't advise this for a beginner. That's a pretty advanced move. So right there's a thumbless grip, and it just increases the chance that the bar could slip out of your hand. So we want to wrap our thumbs, make sure we have like right there, we want a nice strong grip, and we want our wrists to be neutral. So there I go into overextension. So we're going to get sore wrists if we press like that. So we just want to be neutral. Now the actual height of the bar, you want it set to a point where when you're holding on to it, your elbows are slightly bent. So this is going to give you enough room for when you go to unrack the weight and your elbows are locked out, that you can move the bar and not hit the J-hooks. Okay, foot placement. Again, we're going to keep this fairly simple. We just have our feet to be flat on the floor and our shins to be fairly vertical. Here I'll go through a couple different stances you might see, but for now we just want to stay flat on the floor, and we want to feel like strong and secure when we drive our feet into the floor when we press. Okay, so now that we have an idea of where we want to be like on the bench and relative to the bar, now the difficult part, we need to get braced, and like getting braced for a bench press is a really uncomfortable position. So we need to have our shoulder blades retracted and our upper back to be squeezed as hard as possible. Like when you're a beginner and you haven't done this before, you're gonna you might even cramp up, like your lats might cramp up, because this is a really tough position to maintain. So like I said, once we get into our position, we're gonna focus on getting braced. So you start squeezing your shoulder blades together as hard as you can. Sometimes I like to pull myself up just like that and kind of retract my shoulder blades and just pinch my shoulder blades together as hard as possible and drive my upper back, my traps, into the bench and just hold it there the entire time. So when you retract your shoulder blades, what automatically happens is that your chest is going to come up a little, and this is going to create a natural arch in our back. So this natural arch is what we want to maintain the entire time while pressing. Because if we press and we lose the arch, that means we're changing our spinal position. And obviously that's not what we want. So while we're getting our upper back as tight as possible, we create that natural arch. At the same time, we want to think about getting our lower body stable and strong as well, because the bench press is a whole body exercise. So do not leave your legs and your lower body out of this. We want to be driving our feet hard into the ground, and we want to squeeze our butt as hard as we can. Now, we don't want to lift our butt off the bench. We want our butt to remain in contact with the bench the entire time, during the setup, during the press. That has to remain on the bench, because if our butt lifts off the bench, that means that while we're pressing, there's a change in spinal position. And we want our spine to stay in the same position the entire time. So drive your feet into the floor, push your knees out, and squeeze your butt as hard as you can, while you're getting your upper back tight. And the idea is you want to feel really stable, because if you're bench pressing, you don't want me to be able to come up beside you and push on your legs and lose your complete balance. You want to be firmly planted into the floor with your feet. Okay, so we want our head to be in contact with the bench, but we don't want to be driving our head back into it when we're pushing. So just have it resting on the bench and keep it stable, obviously, but don't actively drive your head back into the bench. So you're going to find this position to be challenging for you. it's a tough setup to get into. It's really difficult to keep your shoulder blades retracted and keep that upper back squeezed as hard as possible. It's you'll get tired, but this is absolutely necessary. We need to have our shoulders back in a stable position the entire time we're bench pressing. There's been so many shoulder injuries while bench pressing over the years. It's not even funny, because when the shoulders start to come forward while you bench, like if they're destabilized, the shoulder is not a very stable joint to begin with, and if it's not plastered to that bench, and when you push, if your shoulder comes forward and you're moving any kind of weight, it's a really dangerous position for you. So keep the shoulder blades back, retracted, and your upper back squeezed as hard as possible. So once you're set up and you've got yourself as tight as you can get, then you take your big breath, and then you're ready to go. So practice this for a while and we'll see how it goes.